Fondant and Fatal Vows isn't just a cozy mystery. It's a story that leaps off the shelf and refuses to sit quietly. Welcome to Marigold Bay, a fog-kissed coastal town where the scent of vanilla sugar drifts through the air and secrets hide in the seams. Inside Petal and Crumb Bakery, cake artist Jodi Ellison is crafting the biggest wedding cake of her career until a fondant rose reveals a note that was never meant for her eyes. The wire isn't hers. The message isn't sweet, and someone in town knows exactly what she's about to uncover. As old grievances, altered records, and a suspicious death rise to the surface, Jodi is pulled into a mystery that winds through every corner of Marigold Bay. With a steady investigator watching her back and watching her heart, she'll have to decide who to trust before the truth collapses like an overworked souffle. Atmospheric, romantic, danger wrapped in sugar, Marigold Bay has a story to tell, and it won't whisper.
Chapter 1. The Rose That Shouldn't Bloom. The fog came in before the sun did. It pressed against the bakery windows like a curious cat, pale and persistent, softening the harbor beyond into a watercolor blur. From the marina, a foghorn let out a low, mournful sigh that vibrated faintly through the glass. Gulls answered with indignant squawks, their wings beating against the salt-heavy air. Inside Petal and Crumb, warmth held steady, vanilla, caramelized sugar, and the dark promise of espresso coiling through the quiet. Jodi Ellison liked this hour best. Before brides, before opinions, before sugar had to behave. She stood at her marble work table beneath pendant lights that cast a buttery glow over bowls of tinted fondant. Pale blush, antique ivory, the faintest whisper of champagne gold. Her fingers moved automatically, rolling a ribbon of rose-colored fondant, thinner and thinner until light passed through its edge. She lifted it gently and began coaxing it around a cone of white. "Easy," she murmured to the Petal. "You're not auditioning for drama." The Petal yielded. They usually did. From the back corner, the espresso machine hissed to life, finishing its pre-programmed cycle. The sound was familiar as breathing. Jodi didn't look up. She pressed the fondant against the cone, smoothing the seam with her thumb, rotating it on its wire stem. One petal became two, then three, each curled back just enough to suggest bloom without collapse. She leaned close and inhaled. Sugar and faint citrus zest from the morning's lemon curd filled her lungs. Beneath it all, the faint brine of the sea sneaked in through the cracked side window she insisted on keeping open year-round. "Morning, girls," she said softly to the row of finished sugar roses lined along the foam-drying block. "Today we become unforgettable." The Mercer Lane wedding cake would be the largest commission she'd taken this season. 5 tiers, cascading florals, edible gold accents like scattered sunlight. Destination wedding, full-page magazine coverage potential. The sort of event that could anchor a bakery's reputation for a year. Or ruin it. Jodi reached for her spool of florist wire, paper-wrapped, food-safe, matte white, and clipped a length with precise snips. She inserted it carefully into the rose cone she'd just formed. Structure was everything. Beauty meant nothing without it. The bell above the bakery's front door rattled faintly as someone tested it from outside. Too early. She glanced toward the storefront clock. 6:12 a.m. Only one person she knew would tug at a locked bakery before sunrise. She wiped her hands on her apron and crossed the tiled floor. The faint stick of yesterday's caramel still tacky near the ovens. She unlocked the door. Claire Dawson slipped in sideways with a blast of damp air, carrying a cardboard tray of coffee cups. Her red curls were pulled into a messy knot, and her eyeliner looked as if it had declared war on symmetry. "You're a menace," Claire said by way of greeting. "Normal humans sleep at this hour." "Normal humans don't have 5-tier commitments," Jodi replied, taking one of the coffees. "Did you get the oat milk?" Claire rolled her eyes. "I know your rituals, priestess of buttercream." They moved together toward the back prep area, the routine easy as a well-proof dough. Claire flicked on the small radio near the mixers. A soft indie melody filled the space, low enough not to intrude. Jodi returned to her rows. Claire leaned her elbows on the marble counter. "So, Bride texted at 1:43 a.m. She wants the roses to be more emotionally expressive." Jodi paused. "There's sugar." Claire lifted her coffee in a toast. "Exactly." Jodi smiled faintly and reached for a small paring knife. "She'll get expressive." "What does that even mean?" "It means she's anxious," Jodi said. "And anxiety wants to feel special." Claire watched as Jodi carefully sliced into the base of the rose, trimming excess fondant to test the structural center. The blade slipped through the sugar smoothly, then stopped. Jodi frowned. The resistance wasn't fondant. It wasn't wired. She rotated the rose slightly and cut deeper. The knife struck something with a faint metallic tap. Claire straightened. "You hit bone?" "Sugar doesn't have bones." Jodi eased the petals apart. Inside the hollow cone, wrapped tightly around the florist wire, was a small coil of paper. They both stared. The radio continued its soft rhythm. Outside, another foghorn moaned. Claire spoke first. "Is that—" "Paper," Jodi finished quietly. Her pulse began tapping against her throat. She set the knife down carefully and lifted the coil free with the tip of a toothpick. The florist wire slid out with it. She blinked. "That's not my wire," she said. Claire leaned closer. "Wire is wire." "No." Jodi held it up between her fingers. "Mine is paper wrapped. Matte. This," she rubbed it lightly. "This is smooth, bare metal." They looked at each other. "Well," Claire said slowly, "that's festive." Jodi unwound the paper. It was cut cleanly, edges sharp, no torn fibers. The handwriting was blocky, deliberate. 3 words. "He'll kill again." Silence expanded around them. Claire let out a short laugh that ended too quickly. "That's not funny." "I didn't say it was." "Is this some kind of bridal prank?" Jodi read the words again. No flourish, no heart-dotted eyes, no exclamation point. "He'll kill again," she swallowed. "Maybe it's about the groom's bachelor party," Claire suggested weakly. "Like, he'll kill the dance floor?" "Claire, what? People say that." Jodi folded the note once, then again. The paper was ordinary printer stock. No scent beyond sugar. "Who assembled this draft here?" Claire asked. "I did." "Alone?" "Yes." Claire frowned. "No one else touched it?" Jodi's mind moved automatically through the steps. She had sculpted the roses yesterday afternoon. Let them dry. Inserted wire. Set them in foam. No interruptions except. She stilled. "Except," Claire prompted. "Lydia stopped by." "The planner." Jodi nodded slowly. "I wanted to see progress photos." I stepped into the office to pull up the mock-up. "And she was out here alone?" "For maybe 5 minutes." Claire let out a low whistle. 5 minutes is enough time to plant a tiny horror message in a flower. "Or swap wire," Jodi murmured. Claire folded her arms. "Okay, let's assume this is not a joke. Why put it in a rose?" Jodi looked at the bloom in her hand. The petals were perfect. Delicate, blushing, unassuming. "Because I would find it," she said. "Why you?" "Because I check the structure before delivering. I always do a cut test on at least one." Claire studied her face. You're not thinking the groom is actually... I'm thinking someone wants me to think that. They stood there, sugar dust clinging to their sleeves, fog pressing white against the windows. Claire took a careful breath. You want to call someone? Who? The bride? Hi, Harper. Quick question. Has Ethan committed any repeat homicides I should know about? Claire snorted despite herself. Okay, not that. Jodi turned the wire between her fingers. The metallic surface caught the pendant light differently than her usual matte spool. This isn't from here, she said quietly. Claire reached for the bakery supply drawer and pulled out the florist wire spool. She held it beside the one from the rose. Paper wrapped versus smooth metal. No contest. Okay, Claire said. That's weird. The understatement hovered between them. Jodi unfolded the note again. The ink was black, sharp, no smudge. He'll kill again, Claire read softly. Again. The words seemed to echo. Do we know anything about the groom? Claire asked. Ethan Mercer? Jodi shook her head. His family owns the harbor table. He grew up here, left for culinary school, came back. Any exes? Everyone has exes. Claire hesitated. There's that influencer woman, Vanessa something. She's been tagging Marigold Bay nonstop. Vanessa Vale, Jodi said. She's the one who used to date Ethan. Claire's eyebrows lifted. Used to? They broke up 2 years ago. And she's in town? For the wedding. Claire made a face. That's messy. Jodi folded the note carefully and set it on the marble table, as if it might bruise. It could be nothing. People don't hide anything inside sugar flowers. Jodi glanced toward the front windows. A shape moved faintly in the fog. Someone walking a dog along the pier. She picked up the metallic wire again. This isn't mine. You keep saying that. Because it matters. Claire leaned her hip against the counter. Okay, let's think as you do. You're a detail goblin. I am not. You absolutely are. If a petal is 2 millimeters off, you lose sleep. That's different. How? Sugar is predictable, Jodi said. People aren't. Claire softened slightly. You don't actually think he's dangerous. I don't know what I think. She looked down at the rose again. It was still beautiful. The message hadn't changed its shape, just its meaning. The bell above the door jingled again, this time with purpose. Both women startled. We're not open, Claire called automatically. The door pushed inward anyway. A tall figure stepped inside, bringing a swirl of fog and salt air with him. He paused just inside the threshold, as if assessing the room before committing to it. Sorry, he said. I know you're closed. His voice was steady, low. Jodi felt an unfamiliar ripple of awareness move through her. Nothing dramatic, just a shift, like when an oven changes from preheat to ready. You're early, Claire muttered. The man gave a small, apologetic tilt of his head. Detective Rowan Hale. Jodi's stomach dropped a fraction. He held up a badge briefly, not theatrically, just enough. We received a call from a delivery driver about a possible disturbance here yesterday evening, he said. Probably nothing. I'm just following up. Claire's gaze flicked to the note on the counter. Jodi reacted instinctively. Her hand closed over it. Disturbance? She repeated evenly. Raised voices. A woman is upset. Jodi felt her pulse tick higher. Vanessa. That happens in wedding season, Claire said brightly. Brides cry, mothers cry, sometimes florists cry. Rowan's gaze moved between them, calm, observant. It lingered briefly on Jodi's flower-dusted sleeve, then on the rose still dissected on the counter. You mind if I ask who was here yesterday around 4? He asked. Jodi met his eyes. They were a gray that matched the fog outside. Just me, she said, and Lydia Vale stopped by. Vanessa Vale's sister? He asked. Yes. Rowan nodded once, filing it away. Claire crossed her arms. Is this about Vanessa? Not specifically, Rowan said carefully. The pause was almost imperceptible. Almost. Jodi's fingers tightened around the folded paper in her palm. "He'll kill again." The words seemed to hum against her skin. Rowan's gaze shifted to her hand. "Is something wrong?" he asked. For a split second, Jodi considered lying. Sugar is predictable. People aren't. She lifted her chin slightly. "Detective," she said, her voice steady, though her heart wasn't. "If someone wanted to warn you about a future crime, how seriously would you take it?" The bakery seemed to hold its breath. The espresso machine gave a soft click as it cooled. Rowan didn't answer immediately. "Depends," he said finally, "on how credible the warning is." Jodi slowly opened her hand and showed him the note. The foghorn outside wailed again, long and low. Rowan read the words once, then twice. When he looked up, the easy calm in his expression had shifted. Just slightly. "Where did you find this?" he asked. Jodi glanced at the rose. Inside a wedding cake. And for the first time since dawn, the warmth of the bakery felt fragile.
Chapter 1 was merely the doorway, a threshold, a whisper, a promise. And Chapter 2, well, that's where the shadows begin to move. You don't want to miss it. I'll offer you a glimpse, just a sliver, a tease delicate enough not to spoil a thing, yet potent enough to stir your curiosity. All right, lean in. Here it comes. The fog hasn't lifted. It clings to Marigold Bay like a held breath, pressing against the bakery windows as if it knows something Jodi doesn't. The note is still on her counter. The metallic wire still gleams under the kitchen lights. And the more she stares at it, the more impossible it becomes to ignore. This wasn't a prank. It wasn't an accident. And it certainly wasn't random. Someone had access to her kitchen. Someone knew exactly which rose would crown the wedding cake. Someone wanted her to find it. But why hide a message in sugar? As gulls cry and the town begins to stir, Jodi makes a choice that will pull her far beyond frosting and fondant, into old rivalries, whispered warnings, and a truth that may already be closing in around her. Because the wire isn't the only thing that doesn't belong. And Chapter 2 is where the questions start tightening, and that's your cue to dive deeper. Chapter 2 of Fondant and Fatal Vows is out there waiting, dripping with mystery, danger, and just a hint of buttercream chaos. You can find it right now on your favorite podcast platform: RSS, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever you love to listen. Just search for the Mysteries in the Dark podcast and step back into the shadows.